Welcome to Introduction to AAC, Building the Core of Communication, presented by Melinda Simon from Hanover County Public Schools.
And for myself, it can sometimes be really frustrating. It could be tantrums, behavior difficulties. A child might not try to communicate and they just let things sort of happen. And sometimes when we have nonverbal communication, they're going to be pulling you in different directions to get what they want. Also, they don't have the experience really in communicating, so they don't know how at this point, especially if they're non-speaking. They're just not how, and they might not have that control over decisions. People make those decisions for them. So it's a frustrating time to be a kid. I mean, think about it. If you weren't able to talk and the only way you had was to drag people around and to point, it would be a very, very hard experience in our lives. So this is what and why we are here today, is that we're looking at communication and hoping to give some alternative methods for children to communicate. But if we think about it, when we have our littles, it's hard for all kids to communicate. They're learning new words, have new experiences, there's new vocabulary that's coming with them every day. But this is also a chance, especially when we're talking about AAC, that it's a chance for them to really get some experience with those vocabulary words, with some pictures to sort of help put it together for them. Also, think about the concepts that they're introduced to all the time. We've got colors, sizes, shapes, verbs, and we try to talk to the kids in sentences, but even putting those longer sentences together is hard for just little people growing up. They might not understand huge long sentences. And sometimes they don't understand their social piece too, as far as like making those requests and when to ask for something or when would be a better time to share information. I know we've all had a child come up and maybe share too much information at some point in time and you're just like, oh my goodness. But this is one of the reasons why it's hard for all children to communicate. They're learning. And they're learning the structure of language and how really to use it the best way possible. So what can we do for our students that have communication difficulties? We introduced AAC. And so this is an acronym, Augmentative or Alternative Communication. This is for augmentative, it supports or enhances the communication a child already has or a person already has, because we know that AAC can be used really from birth all the way up to people in 100s I've used it with. So you really can use AAC at any time. And the augmentative part is great because it's for kids that can speak, or maybe they have a few words that they're just starting with, but it's augments it. It helps them out. It could be our children that have articulation difficulties. They might have a phonological difficulty, or some kids have apraxia where it makes them hard to understand and really motor plan these words. This is a great time to introduce AAC so they have a means to communicate. But AAC, the alternative part, is that kids can use a device when spoken communication is not effective or available. They just can't get the words out. But we know that even if they're using AAC, they have a ton to say. We have no doubt about that. They have a ton to say. Okay, so that's something I wanted you guys to keep in mind, is that AAC has options with this. It can be a temporary solution where it lessens a child's frustration, but it still gets their message across. But it also can be a permanent solution for them as well, where they can use it for the rest of their lives and you can develop and change it as they grow. We have some kids that maybe started off using like our core boards, and now all of a sudden they're using iPads, and some that are now moving into like phones and they're texting for communication. So it grows and can grow with the child. So don't think that just because we're starting here with our core boards, that's it. It grows, and that's the beauty of AAC too. So there's different versions of AAC that you might see, and we're going to start off with ones that are not electrical, and that's the light tech. And so this includes a whole bunch of different methods. And as you can see over on the table, this is a ton of light tech. So you might have something like core communication boards, and this is some core boards with some fringe with it. And they can come in different sizes too. So we have some that are blown up for our beginning communicators. So there's different ways even for light tech that we can use these. We also have on here picture exchange binders. Some children use those. ASL, sign language, is also a great resource that we use. And also even for some children that aren't able to use or point, they use their hands or point, we do have eye gaze boards that we can have children access to. So there's a lot of different variety out there as far as what you might see for light tech. AAC you might see as mid-tech. We might have things like Go Talks and switches. And one of the reasons why we might start with these is that just to get that initiation in conversations or initiation to develop that, like, hey, I have to say something back to get this going, a cause and effect type of relationship. So this might be where a mid-tech comes in to sort of establish that. But these also, they come with batteries. They are electric as well. But the trick is that they do not have that robust communication system that we're looking for possibly high-tech. High-tech, you might see iPad communication devices. And there's different systems that they can run on. We have ProLoquo, which is what we use mostly in Hanover County. We also have different versions of LAMP, Touch Chat. These are all different ways that you can communicate and definitely are hugely valid. So Accent, Touch Chat, they might come in different forms beyond iPads. They have different systems that would be more like a medical recommendation for those dedicated communication systems. And also eye gaze systems, which are absolutely incredible, where we have computers that actually follow the child's gaze to the different icons and it will speak for them. So we have something out there for everybody. And that's what the beauty is of some of these high-tech devices that just say, like, in 20 years, we didn't have all of this. So it really is revolutionary for children that did not have the means to speak. They now have an opportunity to, which I absolutely love. So you may have heard some concerns as far as using AAC. And maybe some ideas that have been passed around as far as, like, is this really the right tool for my child? So this is one of the things that we wanted to do today, is really think about what those myths were and sort of address them, because there's a lot of people giving different advice, and I know, especially if you get on the internet and start talking about my child doesn't speak at this age, they have all sorts of different advice. So one of the first ones we hear is AAC is the last resort in speech language intervention. Definitely not. Definitely not. AAC is beneficial in the early stages of communication development. We shouldn't really wait for a child's older to introduce AAC, because obviously a 2-year-old is going to have something to say. And we know that they're going to make it known one way or the other. So giving them AAC is going to help them hugely. So I have used this. I think we started introducing 18-month-olds for this. And even if they have some difficulty accessing it, we can simplify it even more and even more. So anybody can use it, no matter what their age is. Also, AAC should be incorporated into speech and language therapy that the child has, no matter if the behavior is hard to interpret. AAC is going to help you out. We don't have a hierarchy to get to AAC. Any time is a good time for it. And it sort of helps negate the risk of further developmental delays in communication. This is something that's going to help the child from the earliest age. And instead of waiting to see if, well, they might talk, this is a start for them to communicate and get functional communication going. So we also hear this. Oh, well, if they're using a device, they're using a core board, then, well, that's going to stop their speech development. That is not true. Research is actually showing that AAC is improving speech development. And if you think about it, it's sort of a logical sort of connection. Because you're pairing a visual with a word, it's going to just make all parts of the brain sort of fire. You want them to be reduced in pressure on the individual, and in turn, that's going to facilitate the speech production. So it's allowing them that opportunity to speak and communicate when maybe the mouth is not quite ready or we don't have the connections yet. So we have a lot of adults that might use AAC temporary and maybe like high stress situations. They might turn to AAC when some people say their mouth words aren't working for them that day. They turn to AAC and communicate that way. And it's a good alternative. So it allows people to really bypass that cognitive motor piece and really get them to focus on the communication. Now, we have some people that say the behavior has to be under control. They're going to toss that iPad, they're going to toss that floorboard, and yes, I have had an iPad thrown at my head, no doubt. But at the same time, that was their communication. They were telling me at that moment they did not want to use that iPad, and I get it. There are some days people don't want to do it, just like I might not want to get out of bed every morning. I totally get it. But you could do this, you can still have the behaviors and still access AAC. Now, a lot of times the behaviors are due to kids not being able to communicate. They might see their peers doing things, but they can't yet because of their communication piece, and they might get upset about it. So AAC offers them a way to decrease the behaviors because they are able to express themselves. And we definitely hear from families like, it's gonna be destroyed. This is why we have very strong cases. And that is the beauty of it. These things can bounce, I assure you, they can bounce. We don't want them to that often because they will break, but this is a very strong case and it offers some really good protection. And definitely behaviors are probably the most reliable form of communication out there, but this helps and gives a little bit of management to them. All right, and as I said before, people do not have to be a certain age to benefit from AAC. Children, adults can benefit from AAC. Infants, toddlers, I think early intervention is starting to introduce the core boards, which is excellent. It's just looking at really there's effectiveness for AAC throughout the school years. We've had, again, 18 months to a 100-year-old. I used to work in a skilled nursing facility. I've used that with that age too. So it can span a lifetime. So it is not limited by any age. Okay, and this sort of goes back, myth 5, that physically able to touch the device to benefit from AAC. A person cannot be too impaired to benefit from AAC. We have so many different ways to modify communication, and this is where we rely a lot on our occupational therapists to help guide us and to help to figure out our best ways. And that's sometimes one of the most beautiful things is that we have an entire team working together for a child to access their communication system. So we have eye and head tracking devices. We have switches that I've had kids use switches with their heads, switches with their hands. I've even heard of people trialing AAC switches with their feet. I mean, we will use whatever method we can to get kids talking and communicating. Also, partner-assisted scanning is a really great method for kids to get their message across too. So again, we have some eye tracking devices within the schools. There is more of a medical piece that goes along with this, but we can help kids communicate no matter what their ability levels are. All right, so we also hear this too. Is it necessary to use those light tech AAC tools before high tech? No, don't have to. There's no prerequisite skills needed to use AAC. A lot of times we do start with the core boards just to see if kids have interest, and to see if they're able to sort of isolate their fingers. But we will effectively use AAC for kids that like to hear that sound connected in that speech generating device. So several studies have found that people who use sound generating devices have more opportunities to speak. They take more turns and convey longer messages, and early exposures increase developmental outcomes. So that's why if we see that a kid is interested in core, in our lower tech type of, light tech type of materials, we try to move them into a device fairly quickly, because in Hanover, we definitely believe that that sound generating device is something that is a bit more interactive than just our core boards. Core boards are a start, but then we move on. Okay. People who can express their basic needs do not need AAC. Not true again. Everyone has a communication bill of rights. Everyone has that right to communicate in order to achieve communicative competence. This can supplement if they're not able to speak all the time, and that is totally fine to use that. And I hear that more and more from a lot of adults that are just sort of out there in communities, that AAC is just sort of a lifeline when they are flustered, or if there's emotions that are coming into play that block their communication. AAC is a great alternative. Okay, and then this one bugs me. Not even gonna lie. People with severe communication impairments cannot learn literacy skills with AAC. That is not true. We have so many kids that learn to read, that learn to write, and sometimes that's typing. It depends on what their accessibility is, but the literacy skills I've seen many times are enhanced by using the AAC. Because almost always we have the words with the pictures. So once they start seeing those words over and over again, that's literacy exposure. And they're making that connection like, oh, that word is with that grapheme as well. So we've got both the word actually spelled out with the visual. So definitely you can have significant gains with the letter sound correspondence. That's why a lot of times when we have our devices, you will have a keyboard for ProLocal, at least, that comes with it. So if the child is interested in typing and spelling later on, then that's something that can, again, grow with them. All right, so I have a challenge for you guys. Okay, if you got the pen and paper that was given out earlier, I just want you to jot down, this is a scratch sheet of paper somewhere. How many things can you say with just these words? So we're gonna make it a little interactive. All right, I'm gonna give you just a couple of minutes. I'm gonna time it. Go. Just write down any phrases you could say with these words. So what did you guys come up with? What were some phrases that you came up with? And you can just yell them out.
I want more juice.
Oh, got it, got one. Very good. Okay. What else?
I want more juice and cookie.
Oh, throwing an and in there. Excellent. Okay. Anything else? Anybody want pretzels or popcorn?
All done bathroom.
Oh, all done bathroom. That's definitely an important one. Anything else?
You do all of the I wants.
Mm-hmm.
I want pretzel, cookie, popcorn, juice, bathroom.
Right. Then more.
And you really could do I want more with all of
With
them.
all of them too, exactly.
And all done.
All
All
done.
with all of them
Okay.
too.
So is there anything you notice about these words? Or at least some of these words?
They're basic,
Yeah,
simplistic.
very much. It gets your point across.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with requesting. Okay. All right, so I want you to keep that in mind. This is great for requests.
It's also food driven.
Very food driven, yes. I mean, that's pretty much food or drink for 4 out of 8.
And you hope you have those things if somebody's going to ask you for
That
it.
is true. Yeah. That is true. Okay, so we have a lot of nouns, okay? Remember, think back to your English days, or when you were taking English in maybe high school, or who knows when, but they're tangible. Pretzels, cookies, popcorn, juice, and bathroom are all things that are tangible. You can lay a hand on it, it is a noun. So these are some good things to say, but it's a little bit limiting. Let's take a look at some other words. All right, now we have 8 other words. Some of these are the same, but can you go ahead and make a list of different things that you can say using these 8 words? Okay, I'm gonna give you another 2 minutes. So what are some things that you can say with these words?
I don't want to go.
Oh yeah, I don't want to go. Definitely a good one to say no.
I don't want to stop.
Oh, I don't want to stop. They're gonna keep going on that. That's good.
Also, I like to help.
Oh, I like help. Yes. So you can request with that, but also agree too. So that's definitely a good thing.
I want more help.
I want more help. Okay, good. We're getting back to that requesting again.
You can also say, I want to help more.
Yes. Okay, I like these reasons. Exactly. Now, notice that you guys were making longer sentences. Almost everything you gave me was about 4 words, at least. Maybe not with the 2, but that was about 4 of the core words together. And this is one of the reasons why we focus on our core words to develop language. Okay, and let me give you an example of this. Did you notice too that you were talking about requests, but you were also talking about some agreement, some disagreement in here. You're also talking about stop, don't. You're telling somebody that you don't want something. And for our little kids, they need to be able to say that too. It's really important that our kids are able to say that they don't want something, or something that's different. So the words right here are more versatile. And so let's talk a little bit about this. This goes into something that is a robust communication system. And what we mean by this is that it's comprehensive. It has 4 key elements. It allows the user to communicate a range of functions of communication. It has access to core vocabulary, it has access to fringe vocabulary, and it provides access to the alphabet. And we're gonna go over some of these just to explain exactly what we mean here. All right, and so that's what we want for all our communicators. We want them to have a robust language system because we can't just request all day. Think about what we do. I said hi this morning, but with like a textbook, I can't do that. Okay, so it's important to think about what we do in just a day as far as how we use our language. And that's one of the most important pieces of using core. Everyone communicates with those different purposes. So when we're looking at our different options, choosing an AAC system for a child, we want to make sure that a child can request, share an opinion, complain and protest, as much as we don't want to hear that sometimes. They do have the right to do that. Request activities, actions, places, ask questions, answer questions, and engage in social routines. Those greetings, those manners do come into play too. So with other systems, it's not, people are not able to do that. So having that robust communication system offers them so many more ways to communicate and really express all these different needs. And to do this, we provide a lot of our children with core vocabulary. And core vocabulary is sort of a small set of words in any language that are used frequently and come across context. If you think about the words you use every day, there's about 350 words that account for 80% of the words we speak. So that's a lot. If you think about how often you might use I or you or play or work, especially if you got little ones, we gotta go play. These are all things that you use over and over again, and probably in repetitive phrases for a lot of our kids. Also, the cool thing about these is that in most sight word lists, the core vocabulary is right there, on there, and as well as adult words list, which is sort of the beginning reading words. So core vocabulary sort of helps, again, that literacy piece as well. Now, these are sort of a set amount of words that kids are going to use over and over again, but there is a personal element that we have to address. Because we have some kids that are a little bit more focused on different things. Like my kids loved sunflower butter. That was one of their core words, and we had to put it on there because they absolutely adored that. But somebody else might have dinosaurs as one of their personal core words because their child loves dinosaurs. Or they might like blocks, or they might love cocoa melon. That's part of their core set of words. So this is something that is used every day. So there's a large variety of different words that are the set ones, but a child's personal core words, the ones that are sort of vital to them, is really important to include too, which definitely can include family members and people that are personal to them. Okay. But these are the words that are going to help us communicate for a variety of different purposes. And then we come into our fringe vocabulary. The fringe vocabulary is a set of words, and again, mostly now that are situation, context specific, that are the fringe vocabulary. It could be strawberries, hydrogen, respiration. These are the words we are not going to pull out every day. But these are also ones that can become more personalized. Names of friends and family, words that fit into categories like the vehicles, the animals. And that's the cool part when we talk about devices. And even our core boards, is that we try to include the fringe words that the kids are going to need to give them the opportunity to communicate those as well. So 20% of what we say come from a bank of thousands of fringe words. I must say that Pluto has not come up in communication for myself lately. So this is why that it is there, but it's on the fringe. It's not one of my core words that I have communicated with all the time. But fringe vocabulary is sort of an important part of our communication system. It's not like they're total outliers. They still are needed to help kids communicate. And finally, that last part, the alphabet. We do include that, so as the kid learns to read, it needs to be accessible for them. So they can, and I have some students that like to go through the entire alphabet in order. And that's something that is good practice for kids as they learn to read and write. So they need to explore it. They need to find their first letter of their name. So this is all good things that help them to learn and build skills as well. Okay. So this is why learning our core vocabulary is so important. Core versus subject-related fringe is that these core vocabulary words are going to be used over and over and over again. Fringe vocabulary might be used in one unit, but maybe not again for next year. Maybe photosynthesis is brought up at some point in time, but it might not be, again, that everyday conversation word that we have. But it's there if they need it. Again, core vocabulary words are used across a lifetime. I can give people pretty much a core board and they can make sentences with it. But maybe not everybody has a need for like an Oreo, or they don't like popcorn. So it's not something that's going to come up all the time. So that's why that second set of words was really important. It also helps their educational team. It gives them a vision. It helps them focus on what is necessary. It also helps the family too. It helps our family sort of establish and think about, okay, what's really important as far as our core words, but then broaden it to their fringe that we can include too. It also promotes descriptive language. So we can't say exactly that big bear with core words, but we can talk about it big. We can talk about that and give a descriptor to it. And it promotes generative language. It's not limited to scripts, it's not pre-programmed phrases, and it's not limited to just requesting nouns. You can have all sorts of different functions with that core vocabulary, so that is a huge and an important piece that comes with it. Okay, so just some final thoughts, okay? This is a tool. It is something that is not a magic wand. No matter how much we would like it to be, it is not going to magically give a child automatic speech. It's something that you have to take effort with, you have to grow and have patience with it, because it is a learning experience. I always think of it learning another language. It's a system, and it is a slow and steady pace, but it happens. I have some kids that went from literally the core boards, and this is the same kid that did chuck an iPad at my head on a few occasions, but he's now reading with his device. So it can be done. It takes time and patience, but it's a solid foundation, and it is so worth it to see these kids communicating. It's a really beautiful thing. So it's all about the people, not the devices. So what I would like to end with is to answer some questions, but I also want to pass around some different pieces of our low tech, because this is probably the first things that you guys would see if you have a beginning communicator. This board, nicely done by Miss Brenda Croxton right there. We very much appreciate that. I know, she does awesome work. But she's one of our eyes in the playgroup room, and so she's helped us out and made a lot of material for us. But if you take a look here, our core words are in the center, but down the sides are our fringe words. And this is one that is a really versatile board because it has both words that can be used at home or at school. So this is a really good resource. And I'm hoping a couple of playgroup kids that are in here have seen some of these before, because it's a really great resource. So I will send this one around on the side, and then you can send that one around on the other. Yeah. And sometimes when we're starting out in our playgroups, or any of our preschoolers or even older kids, they might not be able to access that many words at one time. So we might start them out on a bigger frame. So this is just another way that we can model it. Now, this is very specific fringe, but I think it's something that's really important, especially with any of our kids that are not speaking. It's a what hurts board. And so they can point to what hurts and let you know that this is the area that's really hurting on me, and gives them some different ways to communicate it. Okay. And so this is just another one. We try to get all different sizes depending on how the kids communicate. But AAC can also be just letting the kids tell what's coming next. And we used a first then, and sometimes it's called an if then board. This is a great resource. We have Velcro on the back and things that are coming up if we have kids that have anxiety about what's coming up next, or they just, like, transitions for them are really hard. Sometimes just giving a visual of where or what is coming next, this is a really good resource to use. So AAC doesn't have to be all the different words. It can be just some visuals to help the child out, as far as to let them know what's happening. And that's a really important piece too. And as we know, our children have big emotions, and sometimes we're not entirely sure what they need to label. So this is something that, again, we use a lot in our preschool classrooms. When I feel frustrated, in this case, I can try, and this one is playing with bubbles. So there's different ways of sort of labeling that emotion and trying to get them to look at an alternative to say, instead of like throwing a tantrum, I can work through this, and it gives them a voice to their feelings, which is really important as far as trying to work through something that's hard for them. Let you guys just take a look at that. I'll send that around. I do have a few extra core boards, so if anybody needs it, you're welcome to come up and take a look, but I would like to open this time up for questions too. If anybody has any questions about AAC or communication.
I want to just throw out one more thing that speaks to what you were talking about with the core, in that how many things in games and toys do you know where you use the vocabulary stop and go? Tons. So when we looked at that list of those core, if you really think about like how that can be carried over, what about more? It doesn't matter, whatever food's in front of that child, they have access to say more. You didn't need to have a picture of that food. So I think, you know, if you think how you can use that outside of the box or in the moment, I think is super important.
Yeah. This is a beautiful thing, wagon rides. Okay. We love using this on wagon rides. Oh, the wagon stopped. Oh, time to go. And just having that, again, it's a good start. If you're starting out in core, just having that visual of stop and go is a beautiful thing to go with. Also with this, if you're swinging or going down a slide, oh, we're stopped at the top. Let me know when it's time to go. Oh, touch and let them go. So there's different ways. Yeah, playgrounds, any time that you're having a play date. There's so many different ways that you can use these words. Sometimes you gotta get a little creative, but there's different methods. But sometimes it just takes a little bit of playing, like, okay, I'm gonna try stop and go in this activity today. And just see what your child can do as far as accessing these different words.
All of the playgrounds that are elementary schools should
Yes.
have a big core board
Mhm.
on the playground, which is really nice, and it has some of the fringe with the words like slide and swing, so you can go and model
Mhm.
more, stop, go, play tag,
In, out, up, down.
out,
Out.
yeah, up,
Lots
down,
of
all
lots of
directions.
slaying things can do in, out, up, down.
Definitely.
My turn.
Yes. Yeah, and it's actually really cool to see. You'll especially get like some of the kindergarten classes are awesome. They'll come up and like start making sentences, and they love to look at the board too, and just to see what they can recognize out there. And then they start reading it, which is again encourages that literacy piece too. So we absolutely love it. It's a good resource.
Thanks so much for watching our presentation today. We hope you enjoyed it. Please contact us at the Hanover County Public Schools Parent Teacher Resource Center if you have any further questions. You can email hanoverprc@hcps.us. Thanks.